Good evening, guys. Welcome to Chasing Green Arrows. Game week 10 is in the books. Mine went okay, I guess. Haaland's was a disaster, wasn't it? He didn't score a hat-trick. Erling Haaland on the decline, dropped tonight in Copenhagen. Not good enough that he doesn't score a hat-trick. He's on the bench, along with Phil Foden, actually. As if you're FPL owner of either of those two, you're very happy tonight to see that Man City putting Haaland and Foden on the bench. All jokes aside, there's no Gianni tonight. No Gianni again, but the super sub himself, Abdul, is here. FPL seller, thank you for coming back, mate. Appreciate it. How are you?
No worries, my pleasure. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, FPL-wise, wasn't a great week, but I know we'll move on. We'll move on from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us were in the same boat. I mean, the average score was, I think, 58. I got around that mark. And most people I know that take this game seriously did get around that mark. And it seems that people who took a punt were the ones who got a bit higher this week. We'll be assessing both of our teams later on in the show. Remember, you can get your questions in too now. If we don't answer them right now, we will circle back to them towards the end of the show. Thanks to everyone that is tuning in already. All the regulars are jumping in there. I see. Hello, Laura. So you just jumping out on my screen there. Nuclear Atom, of course, you are here. And everybody else, as usual. We are going to do a bit of a bigger hit on assessing Arsenal versus Liverpool. So stay with us for that in the eye test section. There's plenty to talk about from that game, both reacting and going forward. But Abdul, just apart from that massive game, was there a team or a performance that stood out to you from the weekend?
Yeah, I think for me, I really like Newcastle. I mean, I think we kind of know now they're probably like a top 8 or a top 6 team. They totally battered Brentford, and they've got some good attacking options. I think Wilson and Almiron, I mean, are both options that we should be considering now. Kieran Trippier was just, the one that stood out again. I mean, Newcastle won 5-1. He conceded a goal. There's 4 different goal scorers in the match, and he still ended up with 2 bonus points. He got an assist, obviously, but it just shows when he gets attacking returns, or even when Newcastle will get a clean sheet, he will be high within the kind of bonus points, because he's with his chance creation and with his cross, and it really kind of favours him in the BPS system. So yeah, Newcastle really kind of caught my eye, and I think Trippier for me was probably the one mistake I made in my wildcard and not getting him in.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's probably a bit of a blow. Trippier, I had him in since game week 1, and I think I said at the time, I intend to just keep him for the season. I think, not only, I've probably been a bit surprised by Newcastle defensively, but going forward, he's just such an asset, and he's somebody to really consider. Paul Cook says Newcastle, Brighton, even Bournemouth. Yeah, did Solanke get you any points? You've got Solanke, haven't you? What did you get? Did you get an assist in the end?
Yeah, you got 2 assists.
I got 2 assists. Oh, right, great.
You got a nice 8 points. So
very nice. There you go.
All the Solanke haters out there.
Yeah, Gianni will not be happy with that at all when he returns. I'm sure he'll have some reasoning as to how that was allowed to happen in this game that we love. Again, thanks everyone for tuning in. We see Nuclear Atom's asking me questions about Mbappe. Not sure that's going to have effects on FPL right now. Maybe in a season, if he's that desperate to leave PSG, wouldn't mind having Mbappe as a selection headache coming up. But PSG tonight denying that there is any problem in their squad, any problem with team harmony. Those rumours wouldn't have just been made up. They've come from somewhere. So I'm sure will be a big talking point between now and January. But we are actually going to focus right now on the Premier League, on the here and now, and, well, on Arsenal versus Liverpool. Let's look at the eye test. What a game this was. Now, said going into the game, Arsenal are favourites, expect Arsenal to win this game. They did. It wasn't easy. It was a good game, but they did get the job done. We have to take them seriously now, don't we? Both in FPL and legitimately in the Premier League. I still don't think they'll win it. I don't think they're better than Man City, but even to come second is absolutely unbelievable for them.
Yeah, I mean, as so we need to kind of recalibrate our thinking on Arsenal now. They are the second best team in the league, and I think now they're favourites to finish second. I agree. I don't think they've got the kind of depth in squad and quality of City. So City, I think, it's for me pretty much certain they're going to win the league. But Arsenal are second favourites now, and I think we need to start seeing their kind of from an FPL point of view, seeing their assets, kind of not on the same level as City's, but similar to that, as in like with City, you just pretty much say they're fixture proof. I think Arsenal aren't far behind.
Yeah, absolutely. That interesting comment here from Paul, who says FPL score from Salah was 303. That's the score to beat if you're ever going to top it. Haaland is going to obliterate this already after 9 games, 102 points, 15 goals, 3 assists, 15 bonuses. I mean, but where does this end? I mean, obviously, if you one of these people that's captained Haaland from day one, then you're absolutely flying the season. You've got over 200 points off him alone, which is absolutely ridiculous. Do you just expect him to obliterate that record now?
To be honest, I don't know about the Salah's record, because I mean, I know Salah scored about 32 goals that season, but he's a midfielder, so Haaland's going to have to score a lot more points, to kind of get to that level. So I'm not sure about the actual points total. He could get it. I mean, the goals total, yeah, I think he's gonna obliterate that. I think he can. I mean, if he stays fit, Dean, he'll probably get 40 goals in the season if he plays about 30, 35 games. And yeah, he's already 8 goals behind last season's Golden Boot total, which was 23, I believe.
Yeah.
After 9 games, so yeah, he's going to break all sorts of records.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. But look, we're here to talk about Arsenal versus Liverpool. And I want to focus actually on Liverpool first, because anyone who's still got Liverpool players in their squads has a real headache coming up. Obviously, their next game is against Man City. But beyond that, Diaz now injured. Mo Salah still isn't firing. Klopp's got another headache now because he just come up with this formation. It seemed like it might work, a 4-2-3-1. Managed to wedge those 4 attackers into the lineup. Now that Diaz is gone, he's got a problem. So what does he do there? Does he move Jota out to the left? Does he drop Darwin Núñez out to the left? Does he think, right, Mo Salah needs confidence. Let's play Mo Salah through the middle. Look, you obviously, FPL Salah, I can't not ask you straight off the bat about him. I'll give you time to sneeze. You're all good. But in terms of Salah, you've got him in your team, haven't you?
Yeah.
No spoilers on your team, but what are you thinking?
It's a tough one, Dean, because I mean, watching the game was a hard watch as a Salah owner and as a Salah fan as well.
Yeah.
He was just so wide and deep, and then all the chances were falling to Núñez, Firmino, and Diaz. Really, they seemed really central. I mean, the thing is, like now, I mean, because City and Arsenal have got to get a blank in game week 12, that I think for me that pretty much kind of locks them into my team, as in I'll need to kind of stick with them now, because they've got West Ham at home in game week 12, when City and Arsenal blank, and then they've got Nottingham Forest next, and they've got good fixtures all the way until the World Cup. So for me, I'm going to have to reluctantly kind of stick with him. I'm still not totally I've not lost total faith in him yet. I know his stats haven't been anywhere near as good as he was last season. And this new system that they've played, I mean, we've only seen him in 2 games in the new kind of 4-4-2 system, but from those 2 games, it seemed really, really kind of really bad for Salah. From his positioning, he was nowhere near any. He wasn't anywhere near the goal in any of those 2 goals. He was so far behind. So I'm kind of I guess the Diaz injury is a bit of a blessing in disguise, because I think they probably will go back to a 4-3-3, and Salah probably will be positioned closer to goal. So yeah, I think that's what my kind of thoughts are at the moment. I'm going to stick with them, and I'm kind of hoping with Diaz being out, not only is that going to kind of guarantee more minutes now, because I mean Klopp took him off, was it the 68th minute, which was a huge shock to me. Salah now gets taken off, so that's quite interesting as well.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Interesting comment here from Nuclear. I'm selling Salah for Bowen this week. Easy decision. Salah is dropping deep to receive the ball. Darwin is hogging all the chances. Forget about Salah doing anything at the moment. And he also says if anyone's sticking with Salah, it's just stubbornness or they've got other fires to put out. But I mean, it's stubbornness, but with a reason, isn't it, too?
Yeah,
Because, like,
exactly.
I've never seen anyone fall off a cliff like this. Like, you can't go from the stats that he was putting out for 3, 4 years, whatever it's been, and then just go nowhere. Like, he's got 45 points so far this season in FPL. And like we said at the start, like Haaland's up there on 100. And like you'd expect Salah probably to be on 80, even if he wasn't having a great season normally. So it's a tough one. Do you consider yourself stubborn, or do you think there's more reason into it than that?
It's a good question. I don't think so because, as he said, that if, like if you've got other fires to put, I have got other fires in Trent Alexander-Arnold. But I mean, even if I didn't, I think I'd still stick with him because I mean, I don't think there's anywhere else to go unless I use my 2 free transfers and move Salah out for like a Bowen or like a mid-priced midfielder and take one of my take Mitrovic up to Kane or something, right? Which I don't fancy doing. So yeah, I just think, as you said, it's like, for the past 5 seasons, he's been put absolute elite stats. It's not normal for a player to just fall off a cliff like that. I mean, usually it's more of a gradual decline. He's only 30 years old, so I don't think we can use his age as an excuse. I just think, it's more like an overall problem with Liverpool, and they've not been playing well. And I just think he will come good. When he comes good, I don't know. And I just think, that the best time to kind of target players, coming back into, form, you could say, is during good fixture runs. And, they have got a good fixture run coming up. So yeah, I'm going to stick with him. Maybe it is a bit of stubbornness, but I think, as you're saying, it's stubbornness with a reason. I think he's got enough in the bank in the sense of, his goals and assists over the last 4 or 5 seasons that it's justified to, to put a bit more faith in Salah.
Yeah, look, after Liverpool play Man City, they've got West Ham at home, Nottingham Forest away, and then Leeds at home. If he's not scoring after those 3 games, everybody needs to ditch him and forget about it. And to be honest, Salah probably needs to seek a transfer away from away from Liverpool in January, and just save his career. Just go somewhere else because something has obviously gone catastrophically wrong if Salah is not firing by like game week 14, 15. So let's keep an eye on it. Let's move on from him for now, though, because I do want to talk about Trent. I've seen a couple of people mentioning him. I'm1974 says Trent is a problem. I've got Cancelo and James. Where to turn next? We've already mentioned Trippier at the top. What would your advice be right now to Trent owners?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a position I'm in myself. So what I've been thinking is either just go straight to Trippier, kind of save the hassle. I know he's got Man United next and he's got Spurs coming up in a few weeks, but he's more of a long-term transfer. I can see him staying in my team, past the World Cup. So I could go down to Trent, or I could take Trent down to like a Dunk, Kilman, who've got good fixtures in game week 12, and then use that money to upgrade my 5th midfielder to like somebody like a Bowen, one of the 8 million kind of midfielders. So yeah, I guess it depends how many transfers you've got. I think if you've got 1 free transfer, then the move to Trippier is probably the sensible move. If you've got 2 free transfers, then that opens up a bit more options for you.
Yeah, absolutely that. Right, let's move on to Arsenal briefly. As we said, a great win for them. Unbelievable to be ahead of Manchester City at this point. Man City haven't lost a game this season. They're not top of the league. Like, that's how well Arsenal have done at this stage of the season. Their next game is Leeds away. So you're banking on Arsenal winning that game. They do then have a blank. But you have to be careful about ditching all your Arsenal players because of this reason. Because on the back of that, they then have Southampton and Nottingham Forest. And at the moment, Arsenal are going to pummel those teams. So you've got to be cautious here, haven't you? And being careful about like ditching players just because they've got 1 blank when you're going to want them back for those 2 fixtures.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a few weeks ago, Dean, I was quite open to the fact of getting rid of Arsenal players, ahead of game week 12, keeping the Man City players. But as I said earlier, I think now we need to kind of, upgrade, the Arsenal kind of assets. We knew Arsenal were good a few weeks ago, but I think we all had in the back of our mind, are they going to keep it up? Is this just like a little purple patch? But the result against Liverpool kind of seals for me that, they're a real deal. That, they've matured as a team. So yeah, I think for me, I'd be looking to keep their assets, through game week 12. If you've got, I guess, if you've got the defenders, I think they're disposable. The likes of Saliba and Gabriel, maybe you can get rid of them. But when it comes to like Saka, Martinelli, Jesus, who are the popular options, I think you need to find a way to just keep them in your team.
Yeah, I know we did talk about this on Friday, but now on the back of what we've seen at the weekend, this will be our final point on Arsenal, by the way, everyone. If you had a choice and you could afford both of those players, Martinelli and Saka, and you didn't have either of them right now and you wanted one of them, would you still go with Martinelli because he's cheaper, or would you start to say, okay, now we finally know Saka is on pens?
Yeah.
That might, that's taken a long time to come around.
Yeah.
I don't know. It started to get me thinking again that I might want Saka back.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think the pens, Dean, really kind of makes it a decision now. And what's the difference now? Maybe like it's only like 1.1 million difference.
Yeah,
I think possibly the penalties. I mean, if you're gun to head at the moment, I think I'd go Saka because of the pens.
Yeah. I mean, that's the reason I brought him in at the start. Like, they'd had I can't remember exactly who they played now pre-season, but they smashed someone. And Saka, I think he got a hat trick, and one of them was a pen. And I was like, that's convinced me. I'm going for Saka if he's on penalties, because no one was sure that Jesus was going to be on penalties. And then Saka had taken that one. I was like, right. But they don't getting any penalties. Like, it was so weird. Like, it's taken so long to discover this. I had to give up on it early doors. But I think that's wise advice. But let us know in the comments what you would do there and whether any of you do have Saka at the moment, because he's probably quite an under-owned player, I would imagine, in the game. Right, let's move on now. We're going to go on and look at my notebook. Yeah, so we talked there obviously about the main game of the weekend, but in this section, we're going to review a few other performances, both individual and team, and just give you something to all think about really in terms of whether we should be considering or reconsidering decisions that we might have made recently. I want to begin by talking about Anthony. He scored in all 3 games so far. He is looking confident in front of goal. He's got an obvious type of finish that he likes, but it works. What I'm looking at too is him versus Sancho. Now, I'm not saying that Sancho's been an FPL asset that many people have considered, but at this point of his Man United career, he definitely should be, and he's not. And already, for me, Anthony is way, way higher in terms of consideration than Jadon Sancho would be. Jadon Sancho was an unused sub at the weekend. Like, I can't believe that Sancho was just not taken off at United, and in such a short space amount of time, Anthony has been, and he's already a bit of a hero for United. I mean, how do you assess Anthony right now? And do you think, I think at 7.6, he should be considered?
Yeah, I mean, he's played 90 minutes in the last 2, which is, convincing. I'm still not sure. I mean, I just think he is probably, one bad performance away from, possibly, getting benched or, rotated. I do think, obviously, he is first choice at the moment. I still need to see a bit more from United, though, as a whole. I think, 7.6 million when you've got, kind of the likes of James, Maddison and Bowen, just at 0.5 more. I'm not sure he's worth the risk at the moment, but I do think once their fixtures pick up, I think it's a good time to kind of wait on them, because United's fixtures, if you look at their fixtures, I think you'll want their players from game week 14 because they've got Newcastle, Tottenham, and Chelsea next. From game week 14 all the way until game week 19, that run is amazing, and I think by that time I think we've got to have a lot more information on Anthony. Whether he's a sure starter and whether he's going to keep those that output up, and then we can make a decision on him then.
Yeah, absolutely. That obviously the game we go on pause after game week 16, but even those 3 game weeks, West Ham, Aston Villa, Fulham, like that is a run of greens when you would expect Man United, especially going into that break, they're going to be wanting to go into it with a bang and looking to prove a point. And look, they might do fine against Newcastle, Tottenham and Chelsea. Like, this team is definitely getting better. And even it might be that Anthony is the guy that makes a difference in those games. I think that I've been really impressed by the fact that he's come into the league and he made an impact this quickly. Paul Cook says, I agree, Dean. Anthony or Casemiro? I'm not so sure if I'd be going Casemiro, but, here's something to consider, I guess. But yeah, Man United definitely starting to show signs of life now that they've got that outlet in Anthony. I still think it's a massive downfall, though, that they don't ever have Anthony Martial as a constant in that team. In pre-season, when it was Rashford and Sancho and Martial, straight away there was a fluidity about them and it looked really sharp the first 2-3 pre-season games. And then they all started dropping away and they never really got their flow together again. Anthony started to change that because he's consistent. But Martial's just never there, is he?
Yeah, I mean, I find it a shame on Martial because he's injury prone. He's been injured for the last 2 or 3 seasons. I mean, I think this time it was his hip injury, I think, or something like that took him off. But yeah, I mean, you've seen when he's played, the short amount of times that he's played this season, he's done well. Came on against City, scored 2, and then he got the assist for Anthony, of course, as well. But then, yeah, I just don't think we can go anywhere near Martial at the moment, due to his injury. So I think right now, when you're looking at United assets, you're probably just looking at Anthony and Rashford, really, when you're looking at the attack.
Yeah, it seems that way at the moment. Let's move on and talk about Chelsea. Again, against the obvious on Friday, for anyone that was watching, I went with Mitrovic, didn't play. You went with Reece James, and he didn't play. Wasn't expecting that. Was not expecting him to not start that game. Obviously, wasn't the reason that you picked him. He does start tonight, everyone. Reece James is starting in Milan for Chelsea tonight. Did you have Reece James in your team? Did that hurt you?
I did, yeah, and it did hurt it because I would have got Andreas' 6 points off the bench if he hadn't, come on.
Yeah,
I wasn't expecting that at all. I mean, I think with Graham Potter, I think that's probably a sign of things to come. He's got a much bigger squad at Chelsea. He can afford to rotate, and the fact that they won 3-0 and kept a clean sheet kind of tells us that he'll probably do it again.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Potter's been quite vocal about the fact that he intends to utilise this squad. One thing I would say is that's fine in your early days as a manager because no one's really going to be too unsettled like 4 or 5 games into your reign. By the time we get to the World Cup and going into the new year, there will be players that are not settling for that. Like if you're Aubameyang or you're Sterling and you're being left on the bench for no real reason, or if you're Reece James, it's not going to sit okay. Those kind of players want to be out there every week, even if it's Wolves. They want to be out there for the consistency and for the form and for their pride. Players do not like being left out for any reason. And I think that's going to be a big test of Graham Potter this season because this isn't Brighton. You're being watched on a much higher profile, aren't you? And judged on a higher profile. And the type of scrutiny and questioning they'll come under will be quite intense.
Yeah, and historically as well, Chelsea, the Chelsea players have the power. You've seen it, they've got rid of plenty of managers in the past as well. So yeah. You're right.
CH calls it Potter Lottery, aka Pottery. That is a good point. I'm not looking forward to predicting Chelsea starting lineups from this point on. Hopefully, the producer can spare me that for a few weeks until I actually can work out how on earth you judge what Chelsea are going to be doing. James had a dead leg. You should know that by now. I do know that. Of course, I know that. I'm fully aware of what happened, but he did come on. So it was still unexpected that Reece James did not play from the start of that game, and there were other players left out of that lineup that would not normally have been left out. And some were given a start. And Potter clearly is going to give people a chance. Right, to round this section off, I just want to talk about 2 teams that I don't know what we do with any of their assets at the moment. And it's Brentford, who have no wins from their last 3, and Leeds, who have no wins from their last 5. So basically what I'm looking at here is, can we still pick Tony for Brentford? He does still score goals, even if they don't win. Do you still trust him? And with Leeds, look, Bamford came in. He got an hour. Arsenal next up, which isn't great for them. But obviously, people would like to find a reason to get Bamford into their team. How are you viewing Brentford and Leeds assets at the moment, Abdul?
To be honest, I'm not too interested in Leeds assets at the moment. I do like Bamford, but I just think, there's no need to rush him in just now. He's another player who's been quite, injury prone over the last few seasons. So I want to see him get a few 90 minutes under his belt. And I think he probably, the only one I'm interested in at the moment, him and probably possibly Aronson, because of his price point. For Brentford, it's Tony or nothing for me. I think he's a great option. Brentford they got Hammond from Newcastle last week, but they scored 16 goals, so that's like, and they're in the top 5, for goals scored in the league. They're good going forward. Tony's that type of player where he's like the definition of a talisman. He will get the majority of their goals. He can get assists as well. He's on penalties. I just think he's a player you can just stick in your team and keep him there for the rest of the season. And he'll kind of just churn out the points. So yeah, for me at the moment, I think I like Tony from Brentford, and then I think I'll possibly a few weeks down the line be looking at Bamford.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just jumping into the comments for a section. Nuclear says, how come Man City still haven't scored yet tonight? Because of this, Haaland is now warming up. Yeah, in Copenhagen tonight, it's Man City drawing their 0-0 at the moment. Yeah. Anyone that didn't watch this, I mean, City did score a goal early. Rodri scored an absolute screamer that was then ruled out for a bit of a harsh handball against Riyad Mahrez. And then Riyad Mahrez missed a penalty in that game too. Riyad Mahrez has since been substituted too. City have just made some subs. Grealish and De Bruyne came off, but Foden and Bernardo Silva came on. So Haaland's still not on, but he might have to ride to the rescue in the final 10 minutes or so of this game if City are going to get a win here. Haaland FC, says John. It's hard to avoid. Like when you've got a out-and-out goal scorer, like it's his job. Like I don't think it has been Haaland FC, but like it becomes hard not to rely on the guy that like just guarantees goals, right? Like that's the difficulty in dropping him or resting him.
Yeah, I mean he's nothing like we've seen before. I mean we saw how good Aguero was, but I think Haaland's on just a different level. Yeah, I mean why not? I mean he's going to get the goals for City.
Yeah, even at the weekend, obviously a couple of chances went begging. He hit the post and stuff. You're like, he's going to score. Just leave him on until he gets that goal. Obviously, we're all relieved that he did score, most of us anyway. But yeah, let's move on because I'm sure you've all been waiting to see Abdul's team and to get some words of advice from him. So let's play Pimp My Team. Right, here we go. We're going to start with Gianni's team. Remember, everyone, if you could subscribe on the stream tonight, that would really give us a boost, and we always appreciate it when you do that. So please feel free to do so. Gianni got 70 points this week. How has he managed that? It really bugs me sometimes, right? I sometimes he'll be talking. I'll be like, oh, not sure about that, not sure about that. And as the game week's wearing on, I'm thinking, I think I've got similar points to Gianni. And he's always somehow got like 15, 20 points more than me. And it's really, really frustrating. So let's scrutinize how he's managed it here. He's got a couple there that haven't performed, like Reece James, Zuma, Nico Williams, Trossard. All of them let him down. Pope's only got 2. But look at those guys around him. Like they've stood up, and obviously having Martinelli in there and Cancelo has really boosted him, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean Cancelo, I think KDB and Trippier as well.
They're nice points.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, 70 is a good score this week. He would have got a nice healthy green with that. And I think, I mean, more points than I got this week anyway.
Yeah, it definitely has got a green from that. As we said at the start, like the average this week was 58, so he's clear of that by some way. And that is a nice lineup. Mitrovic, Bailey, and Andreas on the bench too. So well done, Gianni. I'm not going to hang around blowing smoke up Gianni's backside for this belt because we all know that he's better than me at this game, and I don't like that. I'm trying to change it this season, and it's not working so far. So we're going to move on to one of our teams next to see how we compared. They've gone for me. Walton Rifles, 58 points, like he said. Nico Williams, I'm fed up of him. Even though he's cheap, I am actually fed up of him now. I don't want him, I don't think. I'm fed up of Sanchez in goal. Bernardo Silva, I said this would be his last game week anyway. He is going to be going too. And Brendan Aronson on the bench. He got 5 points. I was annoyed, actually, because Nico Williams obviously came on as a substitute. So that annoyed me. But I am actually contemplating getting rid of Aronson too, because he's just... As an FPL asset, I just don't think he's reliable. I never know when to play him. I don't know what to do with him. And at 5.5, it seems like a bit of a waste when I could have a 4.5 doing exactly the same job. It was a bit of a disappointing week, obviously. Like Reece James, Perisic, Nico Williams, like not expecting that at all. Maddison only gets one. Like just generally a bit disappointing, really, Abdul.
Yeah, I know you had three defenders there who started on the bench, which is unfortunate. And I think now Nico Williams is a high transfer to go now. Obviously, Audio started ahead of him, and we've got like 3 game weeks in 8 days now. So I've got Nico Williams as well. So yeah, he's gonna have to go. I think looking ahead, planning for game week 12, he's gonna be
Yeah, totally. Matty asked, "What's my rank now?" And it's annoying. So I could finally I'd had a good couple of weeks, and I was up to 800,000, something like that. And I'm just looking now, I'm down to 1.1 million again now. So that hard work has already been undone. But I'm sure it won't take too much to get back in there. Damien says, "I'm thinking of moving Bernardo for Trossard." Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair shift. Thinking along that line too. That'd be one of the ones I would consider anyway. Not entirely sure. Aronson to Eze, definitely an option. Eze, obviously, a good weekend for him. And Eze, still so much more to come from him this season. Skamaka is a great Shamaka. Sorry, what am I calling that? Shamaka is a great shout, says Dave. Shamaka, yeah, look, one to consider for sure. We're going to talk about Shamaka later on in the show. But let's get to the team that we really want to talk about because we want his insight, his guidance, and his reflections on, well, you beat me. I know you're disappointed, but you beat me. Yeah. So I'm bottom of the league out of us three here. How did you feel about your game week, mate?
I was quite disappointed, Dean, because I had a good team on paper, and I was quite disappointed in Maddison, Zaha not returning, and I was hoping Mitrovic would play, but I got 1 point from Guy off the bench. And I've also got a few injury doubts in there now. I've got Trent, who looks to be out for a few weeks, and we don't know about Mitrovic, but I think he should be okay. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've got 2 free transfers, and I think obviously my first one is definitely going to be Trent out. Not sure on who yet. Possibly Trippier, possibly Dunk, Webster, Kilman, even, just to kind of get a good player in for game week 12, and also get some cash as well. Possibly upgrade one of my the 5th midfielder, or even Nico Williams. So yeah, I mean, at this point in the week, I was at 187k, and I fell down to 297k. So
okay.
Yeah, it's quite a large fall, I think. Not a huge fall, but a significant one. But I still think I'm in an okay position. I think it's a good start to the season. I was actually checking my start from last season compared to this season. At this point last season, I was 47k, and I was only like a 23-point difference. Wow. So I mean, yeah, and even right now, like another 23, 25 to 30 points, gets you in the top 50k. So still really condensed ranks. So I don't think
it is. Yeah, exactly. So what's your current points total?
My current points total is 603.
603. Okay, so you're 100 points away from the top of the league, basically. Like the guys at the top are all on the 700 mark, basically. So who knows exactly how they got there? I'm going to assume most of them have had Haaland as captain for the whole season, and then they've had a bit of luck along the way. But I think that the Haaland factor has changed a lot this season. The fact that you've also got Salah in your team who's let you down in most game weeks has probably hurt you too. Because if you're that high and you've had Salah all season, you're actually getting great numbers from everybody around him, to be honest, when he's taken up a lot of your money.
Yeah, so I mean that's the kind of I guess you could say I think that's quite annoyed me quite a bit, because I've had Salah since the start, and I was actually at 55k at one point, after the first 4 game weeks, and then obviously everybody else started performing. Salah went on a dip, so I've just kind of slowly been falling from there. So yeah, I mean, I guess if I'd gone for a Kane or like a KDB, I would have been right up there. But
you really would have, yeah. But there you go. We make these calls. Oscar wants to know who your goalkeeper is going to be next week. What are you thinking?
I've got Raya in goal. I think I'm going to go for Raya. I just I thought Leicester would keep a clean sheet against Brentford as well, but they didn't. So yeah, I'm going to go for Raya. I mean, Palace haven't been great, this season, but we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah. Oxlade says Salah hasn't been awful for returns. For 30 million, he hasn't been value sure, but he scored points, just nowhere near hard. I guess it's a point. What did I say earlier on? Like he had 45, was it 45 points or something that Salah's got? So I guess it's not terrible. It's just that we do expect so much more of him when we're picking him and sticking with him, don't you? CH, I'm on 606, 263k. Well done, mate. That's a great start to your season. You are here every single week, CH, every single show. Maybe we'll get you hosting it one week and you can give us some advice so we can get to those lofty heights, because that is some good numbers that you are putting up. Tony says, given the Diaz and Trent injuries and Salah's poor form, I think Abdul's prior advice to not take a free hit or transfer on Man City and Arsenal assets is reinforced. What would you say about
that? Sorry, what's the question? Sorry.
So he's saying, given Diaz and Trent injuries and Salah's form, I think Abdul's prior advice to not take a free hit or transfer out Man City and Arsenal assets is reinforced right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I think you've got to keep your City and Arsenal assets and then try and get an 11 out out with that. And yeah, because now we've got an excuse to get rid of the likes of Trent and possibly even Salah as well. So yeah, it does reinforce that. Yeah.
Salah's in worse form than Almiron. Let that sink in, says Nick.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, Almiron's got 1 point less than Salah this season. He's on 44.
Yes, I mean...
Salah's on 45, but yeah.
That's unbelievable. I mean, on both, look, on the Almiron front, I'm delighted for Almiron, and I'm considering, this is the thing, I'm considering that Almiron's having a good season, and I'm considering Salah's not, and here they are on the same number of points. But for Almiron, like, he's been waiting a long time to show the kind of form that he was showing before he moved to Newcastle, and the last couple of games especially, he's getting that confidence now, and I actually do hope for his sake that he can become somebody that we do all consider, because he's a really talented player, and he's just been waiting to find a role in this team that would really work. Citizen says, goalkeeper with the best FPL fixtures over the next 3 or 5 game weeks, Pope or Lloris or Gator. What would you be saying, Abdul? Have you got any hunch on that one?
I'd say Guaita. I mean, looking at his fixtures up until the World Cup, definitely better than Newcastle and Lloris than Spurs. But Pope is one of those keepers where he's a good shot stopper and he can get kind of hauls against anybody. But I just think for the price, you go for Guaita. He's only 4.5. That's the reason why I went with him in the wild card over Pope. He was 0.7 cheaper. And their fixtures are great. So I think Palace, although as I said, they've not been great, but I do think they'll keep a few clean sheets and be value up until the World Cup.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Oxlade is on 657 at the moment. He's ranked 8th in the Chasing Green Arrows League. Well done, mate. Moved off Salah and Trent in wildcard in a game week 8, but carried him from the start. Yeah, look, in our Chasing Green Arrows League, the leader, Oscar, is on 679. So Abdul, you wouldn't be too far off him. You're there. You'd be. What would you be? Would you say you're on
70 points behind him, approximately 75?
Yeah, but I don't know. That just doesn't seem that much this season. That just feels like.
I mean, at this point in the season, Dean, it's nothing. I mean, it can maybe end up in a few game weeks. I mean, we're only in 10.
Yeah,
on the board.
It's just felt like such a strange season so far. The unpredictability factor, like you love in terms of like just being a general football fan and watching a game. In FPL or any sort of betting, it's just a disaster. Like it's so horrible to just not be able to trust players that in the past you'd have put your mortgage on. It's such a tricky place to be, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it kind of opens up a bit as well. I mean, you can look at it another way that kind of opens up an opportunity to kind of jump on other players, which guys have done. I mean, the guys who kind of went off Trent and Salah, who are proven FPL assets, have benefited, and the guys like me who have kept faith in them have suffered.
Yeah, Mads actually says, I'm tired of Salah. Think I'm going to go from Salah to Trossard and Kane to Mitrovic. And Mandeep actually asked too, is Mitrovic a hold? I mean, look, guys, definitely wait until the back end of this week. Mitrovic's injury, remember, was sustained in the international break. He then played the next game. He didn't figure at the weekend. I'll be amazed if the injury is so bad that he can't be better by the following weekend. Like, especially for the Bournemouth game. Like, if there was any doubt, like I said the other day, then Fulham would have been happy for him not to play West Ham so that he was okay for the 2 games that will follow after that, because they're 2 such winnable games. So definitely hold Mitro for now. Don't transfer him out until we know for sure what's going on. If it's bad news at the end of the week, then by all means, like, look to move him on and move somebody else in, because, you know, there are other options to consider. But it would be pretty rare that Mitrovic would have a problem like that, which they say, you know, he was training outside on Friday. They said he was involved. So another week of progress for Mitrovic. I would expect him to be okay. CH says, is it me, or is this season very much driven by fixture? That's a good way of putting it. Do you think that's true?
I mean, yeah, but I think every season's driven by fixtures. I mean, I think for me, like, I always play the fixtures, and I always kind of see it that way as, well, I guess, you know what, this season has been a bit different in terms of the big teams have had really good fixtures at the start of the season, which is why, you know, we've had, and due to the pricing, you know, everyone's had the same team, you know, everyone's had, like, you know, their full start 11 from the, you know, the top 4 teams. So yeah, I think the start of the season has been a lot more kind of fixture driven. But that's also got to do with the pricing as well. But I think that is changing now, is opening up a bit now. And I think after the World Cup, you know, it'll kind of change. You know, it'd go back, you know, to normality, you could say. But yeah, I think it's just a combination of the good fixtures for the top 4 teams and how cheap FPL have priced the, you know, the players this season.
Yeah, form as well. Tuvik says Maddison in form, Bowen as well, Martinelli. I mean, look, Martinelli, Arsenal have been in form all season, so you've been able to consider him. It's those interesting players like Maddison, who's been part of a poor team, that you still consider. There are interesting ones. Nuclear, I was just about to come on to this. Haaland did not come on for Man City tonight. I'm not sure if it's ended. It might have just be ending now. They're into added time, as far as I can see, with the score at 0-0. But no Haaland on the pitch for Man City tonight. So that's big news ahead of that Liverpool-Man City fixture at the weekend. There's no problem here with Haaland being fit for that one. So that is, well, it's good news, isn't it? Would you...
Or maybe he's injured, that's why he didn't come on.
Well, he's warming up, so hopefully not. Don't say that. I was just about to say, would you captain Haaland next weekend against Liverpool?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just think, you know, with Liverpool's kind of new injury woes with Trent and Matip, and you know, with Haaland being rested, yeah, I think he's going to be my captain. I don't think there's any reason to kind of risk going away from him just now.
Yeah, I'm way too scared to take the armband off of Haaland at the moment. Even against Liverpool, like, traditionally, yes, massive fixture. This season, you're looking at a mid-table team, and Haaland easily could bag a brace, maybe even a hat-trick, who knows. Right, let's move on to our final segment, and then we'll come around to a few questions at the end. Let's play FPL Visa. Yes, everyone, it's that time of the show when we list 9 players who are usually in pretty good form once we go through them. And we consider whether they are players we should be looking to get into our teams right now, never, or maybe in a couple of weeks' time. So, Abdul, I'll just be looking for an accept, reject, or delay from you on each of these 9 players, 3 from each position. We'll go through defence first and start with Ben White, who's been an absolute revelation in my eyes.
I'd say delay, just because of the game week 12 blank.
Yeah, that's a fair shout. He's been so good, though. He's been so good. I've been really impressed with him. So fair play. So he's definitely. Well, I'd say he was questioned quite a bit when he got that role in the team, but he's definitely answered those questions so far. What about Connor Cody? How are you feeling about him?
I'd reject for me. I'm not really feeling any Everton assets at the moment, to be honest. So yeah, reject.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with Cody and Everton, remember there is that stat whereby Everton's goals against basically was expected to be double what it has been so far this season. They've been saved by poor finishing and some great goalkeeping at times. And just don't trust Everton defensively at all at the moment. They have got a very good midfield. Maybe that's part of the reason that chances have been a little more limited. Right, Cody, FPL River says reject. Haley says reject. Punter says delay. Nuclear says reject. I'll get Saliba instead. No, that's probably a fair point. The last defender I want to throw at you, though, is Romero. Is he somebody you would consider?
No, I think a reject for me. I think he's too. He loves a yellow card, Romero, and I just think he's, his kind of ceiling is like 5 or 6 points. And I think at that price point, there's much better kind of defensive options. So for me, I mean, Spurs will pick up a fair few clean sheets, but I don't think he's worth it.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you there. Like, again, as a footballer, yep, absolutely fine. But no, I don't think he's somebody you want in your team right now. Paul says, Everton only letting 9 goals, best defence. Ignore it. Ignore it. Take it with a pinch of salt. That is not considered. Everton, by the end of this season, will not have the best defensive record in this league. If they do, I will eat my words on this show, I promise you. Everyone is saying reject Romero. Literally everybody. I don't think there's anybody that's saying anything otherwise. Let's move on to the midfielder, because these ones are a bit more interesting. At Newcastle, Bruno Guimaraes getting a lot of love. Would you love him for your FPL team?
I think he's a reject for me. I just think he's one of those players where he's been quite lucky with his FPL returns. I think he scored those 2 goals with 2 shots. I know, well taken goals, but yeah, I mean, I don't trust him as an FPL asset. So for reject for me.
Yeah, I mean, Newcastle, obviously, you talked about it at the top. They do look like a very good team at the moment. Yeah. They got a big confidence boost against Fulham when they went down to 10, and they've built on that against Brentford and smashed them as well. They're a really good spot right now. I think Newcastle definitely can aim for that top 6. So I think that Bruno will be a big part of that. I just feel like he's unpredictable as to when and where and how the goals are going to come. So from an FPL point of view, the chances are you'll jump on him at the wrong point and then get off of him again just as he's about to score goals. So it's too risky, if you ask me. Damien agrees. He says reject Bruno. Paul Cook does say accept. Oscar says he would reject. Kev Mack, reject. Matty, too many good midfielders. Well, that might be true. And is one of them Mason Mount, a man who, it's that lovely pass, didn't he, to Christian Pulisic? I really enjoyed that. Clearly a guy that Graham Potter likes, and that doesn't surprise me. There's a bit of talk right now about his contract situation and whether he gets a big new deal very soon. I expect him to get that one, and he deserves it too for what he's done at Chelsea. From an FPL point of view, up to now, probably not someone we've had to consider. That might change soon. I know the other day you hinted that you probably wouldn't do this, but accept, reject, or delay on Mason Mount.
Yeah, I would. If you asked me last week, I would have said reject, but I think now I would say delay. He got 2 assists, and he got maximum bonus points as well. He was one of the players who obviously escaped Potter's rotation, so that could be a sign of things to come as well. That Potter sees him as one of his kind of one of the first names on the team sheet. So yeah, for me, delay for now. Just because I still fancy the other kind of £8 million midfielders, but I think Mount will come into the equation soon.
Yeah, this is a guy that is definitely starting to split opinion here. Haley says accept. FPL River says delay. He could come good though. Oscar also says delay. Then you got Steve saying accept. Catch says delay. CH a clear reject. And then a couple more delays, and Eddie says reject. Nobody's sure what to do about Mason Mount right now. But like you say, he did avoid the rotation. So that is something that perhaps we should keep an eye on. I think you're right. I think delay is the way to go because we don't yet know how this is going to pan out, especially with European football being played at the same time. Obviously, forget everyone, Chelsea in action tonight, kicking off in 10 minutes at AC Milan. I'll be watching that one. The last midfielder to talk about is Marcus Rashford. I think I know where you're going to go with this one, though.
Yeah, I think I'm going to reject. But actually, let's say a delay until game week 14. Because remember we mentioned earlier, United's fixtures pick up, drastically from after that Chelsea game. So yeah, delay until then, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, Rashford's unconvincing right now. He's had a couple of spurts. of goals. But before that, I mean, before the Arsenal game, even during the Arsenal game, United fans were getting quite angry with Rashford. Some people considered that he wasn't running hard enough. Some people considered that he wasn't being brave enough on the ball. He's had all sorts of things thrown at him so far this season. But I think there will come a stage of the season when Rashford does hit some form. I think delay is probably the way to go for now, although most of the comments are saying reject. So hopefully Marcus Rashford isn't watching this. That won't do his confidence any good whatsoever. You mean people. Right, let's go on to the forwards. This first one is actually one that really jumped out at me at the weekend. Watching the West Ham game against Fulham. Obviously, West Ham got a bit of luck with their VAR decisions. But Shamaka, this guy has got something about him. I think that he's really bouncing off the West Ham fans. When something doesn't work out for him, he's straight back on it. He's desperate to make this move a success. He costs a lot of money, like £35 million. And I think he's going to be a really, really interesting player as this season moves on. In your eyes, how do you consider him as an asset? Accept, reject, or delay?
I'm going to say delay because the thing is, he is a great player, and we've seen what he's capable of. But we've seen that Antonio keeps eating into his minutes, and even though he scored in the last two, Antonio came on and scored as well, which doesn't help Samaka's kind of starting prospects. So at the moment, I kind of see him being kind of rotated with Antonio, until the near future. So until I see him kind of as the clear kind of number one starter ahead of Antonio, then I'd probably consider him. But yeah, 6.7 million, you probably can't go much wrong. But I just don't like the fact that Antonio's there constantly, and he will get a few starts over him. But yeah, you're right, Dean. He is a great player, and he is a good FPL asset also.
Yeah, there's obviously those minutes that people are worried about. John says he looks clinical, so minutes matter less. I would accept. I guess that's a fair approach to take. Like if you're willing to accept that he might not get all the game time that other players will at that price point, but when he comes on, he'll make a difference. Then fair enough. I think that is an approach that you can take to this game. Most people do say delay though, and I think that's probably fair, especially given the way that West Ham have started this season. It's all over the place at the moment for them. What about Patson Daka at Leicester City, a team that obviously haven't been informed, but he's having a great season?
Yeah, I would probably say accept for Daka, and that's mainly due to his price. He's the same price as Solanke. I remember we talked about Daka last week. You mentioned him. I said I didn't like the fact that he was benched for Vardy the last game, but he's came back at the starting 11 and he scored. So I think for now he is safe. I think he should be the kind of the number one forward ahead of Vardy. And Leicester's fixtures are good going forward. And Leicester have been really bad in defence, but going forward they've been fine. I think they scored 12 goals now, is it? Which at this stage of the season is totally fine. So yeah, I don't see them struggling in the final third, Dean. So yeah, I'd say accept for Daka.
Yeah, a few others saying the same. On 1974 says accept. Haley says accept. I think that he's looking like he's got a lot of confidence about him right now, and that's what I love about him. He's the style of his finishing is so clinical. He doesn't put much thought into it, and that's what you want a player doing. You just want them going on instinct when you're a player like him, and that's exactly what he does a lot of the time. And at the moment, he's getting chances. Obviously, when you've got James Maddison in the team too, you're always going to get opportunities. So look, the last forward I want to talk. Sorry, Matty says good option for Mitro as he is still injured. Yeah, that's a good point. He might be a good option to replace Mitro if he's still injured. But this last player is a player that I mentioned from the week before when I watched Fulham play against Newcastle, that I kept an eye at that game, like watching properly and watching him in the flesh for the first time in ages, to be honest, Callum Wilson. And his movement, his strength, he's such a horrible guy to keep tabs on. And I really like Callum Wilson at the moment. He's got returns and he's got 5 and a 6 in his last 2 games. So it's not outstanding, but it's interesting. And this is part of a Newcastle team that are high on confidence. They've got Man United and Everton next. I like Callum Wilson. What do you think? Accept, reject, or delay?
I'm going to say accept for Wilson because I'm like you. I really like him. I think for me, he's he's just a perfect FPL asset when he plays. He just always seems to get in the score sheet. He's only 7.5 million. obviously we know about his injury record, Dean. That's the only kind of caveat with him. But when he's fit, he's great. And you know what? He's got Man United away next, but I don't see that as a bad fixture for him. For an attacking point of view, I think Newcastle will score possibly a few in that game. Then they've got Everton at home. Even Spurs is a game I fancy the scoring, and then they've got good fixtures after that. So for me, when Wilson's fit, I think he is, for me, the best kind of mid-priced forward in the game. Ahead of the likes of Mitrovic and the rest, and like the likes of Tony. He's on penalties as well. He's plays central. I think when Isaac is back, he's going to keep the penalties, and he's going to keep he's going to be as the centre forward. Whereas I think Isaac will possibly play up alongside him or play on the wing. I don't know. He is the main man there.
And that's it. And I think you got to remember he's got that motivation to keep his spot in this team. Like, he wouldn't have liked the fact that, like, all summer people are talking about Newcastle were going to sign a really serious forward. Like, they want to be taken seriously and break into the top six. And Callum Wilson's thinking, hang on a second, like, I'm a good player. Like, there's no way that I'm keeping my shirt. I too think that Isak's going to have to be forced into that Newcastle team and probably start playing wide initially, because Callum Wilson, like you say, especially as he's on pens, I think he really is an asset at the moment in this Newcastle team. John says he's England's second best striker when fit. When he's on form, he's probably got an argument there.
Yeah.
I think Callum Wilson is definitely somebody we should all be considering. Right, last few minutes of the show, everyone. It's been a really good one so far. I want a few more of your questions before we go, though. Matty says, what about Welbeck? I think we talked about this the other way, didn't we? That he's just not somebody that seems like he's going to deliver.
Yeah, he's a good, as we're saying, he's a good, excuse me, he's a good team player. He's a good, real life player, but FPL asset, no.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, Welbeck's not even on pens or free kicks or anything, so it's not like you're even getting those points. Right, FPL Salah, fellow United fan, have triple Newcastle defence against Man United. I want Almiron or Wilson. What should I do?
Oh, God, that's a tough one. I think, obviously, I would definitely prefer Wilson over Almiron. But yeah, I wouldn't look to kind of move do total surgery in your squad and take hits to kind of bring them in. I think possibly try and bench the Newcastle defenders this week possibly, and then kind of slowly move them out. But yeah, out of Wilson and Almiron, definitely prefer Wilson. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Ian says Mitro for Edouard. I'm not sure which way round you mean this. If you mean get Mitro out so Edouard comes in, or either way, which one would you have, Mitro or Edouard? Who would you go for?
Yeah, Mitro without a doubt. I think because Edouard scored last week and Mitrovic possibly is injured, I think that's probably why he's asking. But still, no, I'd keep Mitrovic. Just like you were saying earlier, Dean, I think he will be fit for Bournemouth.
Yeah, I think Edouard is an interesting one. Like Patrick Vieira, there's talk about Palace signing another striker in the summer, and he was very clear that he believes in this player. So I think once he gets some form and confidence, he could really do some good things this season. CH, we haven't talked about Spurs much. Thoughts on this week's fixture? It is a good fixture for them, isn't it? Or how do you view it, and any assets we should be considering?
Yes, it's a great fixture. It's possibly the best fixture of the game week, Dean. I mean, as you were saying, Everton, they've conceded the least goals so far in the league. But if you look at their XGC, they're in the bottom 5. So they've been very lucky not to have conceded more goals. Spurs are good going forward. They're top 4 for goals scored and XG. You've got likes of Harry Kane, Son. I fancy both of them, and I've got a feeling about Son this week. I just think he's that type of player. When a good fixture presents itself, like he did against Leicester, came on 30 minutes, got a hat trick. I think this could be a good game for him. So yeah, I really fancy the attacking assets.
Yeah, I am contemplating that. I know everyone right now. Kane has like an warning next to his name at the moment. I think Kane's fine. Don't be put off at the moment by Kane either. And if you can get Son and Kane in together for that Everton fixture, that's one thing I am considering ahead of the game. Getting Son in and having both of those players for that game, like it really might pay off. Do we hold KDB this week or go either Anthony or Son in? Would you get KDB out for Son?
That's a very good question. I don't know. I think, it depends how I was feeling. If I was feeling a bit risky, I think I would. That's a good move because, I think you're probably going to get rid of KDB from in game week 12, he can be moved on to a Son or a Salah. So yeah, I mean, it's a 50-50 call. I think that's, I think it's a good move to keep him, because I think Liverpool is a good fixture for City as well, because there's going to be goals in that game. But also, Son's a fantastic option this week as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. One more question before we end tonight, guys. Thanks as always for sticking with us and getting in all your questions today. It was Haley's question I wanted to come to. Keep or sell Perisic? I mean, we quickly had this debate, didn't we, at the weekend? He got 1 point from the game. Obviously, that is a good fixture, though, coming up. Would you stick with him for this one?
I mean, I would see what for this week. I would see what lineup Spurs go with tomorrow. If Perisic is benched, then I'd keep him for Everton, because I think if he's benched, for Frankfurt tomorrow, he's going to very likely start against Everton. After that, I think you probably look to offload him because of the fixture pile up that's coming up. We're going to have there's obviously I said 3 game weeks in 8 days, and then they've got the Champions League games as well. So keep this week if he doesn't start tomorrow, and then look to offload him, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely right. Lovely stuff, mate. Look, FPL Salah, Abdul, thank you so much for joining us again this week. A regular. Do you get a hat-trick ball yet? Have you been on 3 times?
I think this is my 3rd time, actually. Yeah,
third time. The ball will be in the post, I'm sure. Don't worry. There'll be absolutely no problems with you receiving that. Don't forget, everybody else, it's AC Milan against Chelsea about to start. So lots of FPL interest in that one. Hoping that our players and assets don't get injured. Reece James, I'm looking at you. Thanks to everybody for watching. This has been Chasing Green Arrows. We'll see you all soon.